Rice, JB and Angie. They're not emerge leaders, but they went on a mission trip this weekend to camp down there with us, and they did all our cooking, and thank y'all so much for that. They was a blessing to have them down there, and Teresa Patillo and Susan and everybody who came and helped. We're so appreciative. Had 2 boys get saved about midnight 30 on Friday night. Terry and Vince was doing a devotion, and we're in cabins with no air conditioning and in an area with no phone signal, and I think that done us a lot of good. God showed up in that cabin, and 2 boys got saved with Terry and Vince in there, so just excited about that. I'll let those boys come up and tell it this morning, but what was so awesome was Saturday morning, one guy come out for breakfast, and he said, "First day saved." I like to start shouting. I was like, man, that's awesome. That's awesome. He just stretched, said, "First day saved." I was like, yeah, that's good. That's good. Anyway, thank you for that. We do, and I say this up there, but I'll tell you guys too, because everybody here is my family, but you guys are my closer family as far as, meeting every Sunday morning in here and all, but we do need some help with Extreme. If you have the resources to help or the time to help, if you'll see Pastor Brandon, and that starts next Sunday night and runs through Thursday night, and that's our summertime youth revival where we do middle school and high school. We invite churches from all over to come in. I think we averaged, we didn't do it last year, but 2 years ago, I think we averaged about between, what was it, Amber, 80, 100 kids a night. And so we need help. We want to feed them every night. We want to do some giveaways. People say it's wrong to bribe people to get them to church, but I don't care. If a pair of AirPods given away that night will get them here and they can hear the gospel of Christ, and I don't care why they come, as long as they leave different, right? And so we just need some help with that. So if some of you have already stepped up to help, but not just money. I mean, money will help us buy stuff, but we need some of your talents. Maybe you can help us build this slide, or something like that. We always need help. 2 years ago, we had a slide that started right here off of this porch, and it ended down there at the woods, a water slide. It was awesome. And so we'd like to do that again. But again, it costs money, it costs time, it costs resources, it costs some talents that people have to build that stuff. And just see Pastor Brandon Haskett if you want to help with that. We could really, really use your help. So prayer requests this morning. School starting back, yeah. Pray for those teachers, pray for those students, the staff that's at the school, everything going on there. Pray for that situation. Speaking of school starting back, we're doing our book bag drive as well, and I'll announce that again this morning. But book bag, school supplies, Miss Raquel Neal heads that up every year, and we kind of collect that stuff for a few weeks and then give it out. Yes, sir.
I work with the Trigg County Schools Transportation Department. We desperately need bus drivers.
Okay.
I mean, desperately. Now, it starts at $15 an hour. We pay you while you're training. We help you get your CDL, and you have a week of Thanksgiving, 2 weeks of Christmas, week of spring break, and 2.5 months off during the summer. But you also have an impact on the children.
Yeah. So. That's right, Randy. Go get you a job, Randy.
That was quick, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was so quick. But no, serious business. I figured I was going to look. He retired recently, or not recently, but yeah, JB, go get you a job. You don't do nothing all day.
My shortest kid had a job driving a bus that it would be at the Walmart.
They don't understand the blessing. No, I'm just joking. No, I'm just joking. It is though, Tony. You drive every day, don't you? And I'm sure it's been a blessing for him, because I know if it wasn't, when I call him and say, "Tony, I need you to drive us somewhere," he'd be like, "No, I do that enough." But no, he comes every time, and I'm just joking with you two. But I mean, okay, all right. If y'all know somebody who's interested in that, they could be a blessing to some kids.
Well, for parents, supplemental income
Yeah,
We're on a 12-month contract, even though they only drive 7, 8 months.
yeah,
They take a little bite out of every paycheck, spread it across 12 months, so you get a paycheck during the summer.
yeah,
It's, I
It's the
started, I
best
get
way.
retired.
yeah,
I get retired, I started driving just for the insurance.
yeah,
And, you get state insurance, state benefits.
Right.
It's a great opportunity for somebody.
yeah, yeah, good deal.
Today.
Can't work. All right. A couple of praise reports that I know about. Mr. Ray had his surgery. Everything went well. And Kathy had her surgery. It went well. So hers was last week, and Ray's was this past
They work,
week.
both of them come in look good today, so they work.
It didn't work. They need to go back. So, Terry, I need you to come sit beside JB and keep him quiet. That's what we have to do in middle school. It's still blurry though, right, Ray? Yeah.
I was blurry pretty much.
Yeah. All right.
Hey, you need to, people fighting this virus and
Yeah, it's still going around. We need to not get too comfortable, not get too lazy. Let's stay on our game and do what we need to do to protect ourselves and other people around us.
pray for people that's got it.
Yeah, several that's got it too. So, all right. Yes, ma'am.
Can you pass that paper away?
I sure will.
Here.
I don't. It's in a different spot every week.
I thought about going all the way around.
No, it's okay. We
Thank you.
We'll be in Ruth chapter 4 this morning. We're finishing up the book of Ruth. I've been excited about that. I'll read the chapter and then we'll dig into it. But before we do, let's go ahead and pray this morning and ask God to just come to speak to us this morning. Marty, you mind praying for us this morning?
Father, we just thank you this day. We thank you for all the blessings you give us. Just give Jason the word to bring us this morning. Pray for the choir today, for singing. Lord, give Brother Donald the message he needs to bring to us. We just thank you for everything and anything you do for us, Lord. We do pray.
Amen. So when we started off the book of Ruth 4 weeks ago, we led into the fact that Ruth is considered a love story in the Bible. And when we think about Ruth and Boaz, we just immediately associate that with a love story. And it is. But we've talked about, and we'll really see today, how it's also a story of redemption. And it's a picture of Jesus Christ redeeming us as well. And in chapter 1, we talked about Ruth and Naomi's disappointment, losing their husbands and losing all they had, and being in the middle of a famine and having to go back home. It was just a disappointing time. Naomi said, God's just kind of left me. It's the way she felt about it. And then in chapter 2, we talked about the service of Ruth, how she went and gleaned in the fields of Boaz to provide for Naomi and to provide for the family, and how she went out and worked, and that was noticed by the people in the field, specifically Boaz. And then in chapter 3, last week, we talked about how there was some hope to be found. There was some hope that things were going to work out okay because Ruth went to Boaz kind of in an informal proposal to, hey, I was just kind of curious if you'd marry me because you're my kinsman redeemer. Back in the day of Ruth here, it was customary that if a husband passed away, then the next of kin, the closest family member who wasn't married, would take his wife as his own wife to keep the deceased husband's name going. And so that was the custom of the time. And so she went to Boaz thinking he was that kinsman redeemer, that next in line to do this. And Boaz was an honorable man. Ruth is a virtuous woman. And it looked like things were all going to work out. But Boaz knew something Ruth didn't, and that there was another kinsman, there was a closer kinsman redeemer than Boaz. Just one man stood in between that. And Boaz, we talked about it last week, he was all about Ruth. He saw that she was a virtuous woman. It's been studied that Boaz was around 80 years old. Ruth was around 40 years old during all this. And while she was in the fields, for whatever amount of time she was there, working. It was noticed that, hey, she's a widowed woman. She's suffering. She don't have anybody to help her. Yet she's not chasing all these younger men in the field. She's not out just doing that. And if I could tell anything to young women today is quit chasing these punks around. You know, God has somebody lined up for you. Quit chasing these men around who are not right for you and just wait on God. And that's what Ruth was doing here. She knew the value of just sticking to what God told her to do. And it's crazy that she knew that because she wasn't born a child of God. She wasn't born an Israelite. She's a Moabite woman. But through her mother-in-law, Naomi, Ruth made a decision to follow Naomi's God. And by doing that, it was noticed. It was noticed that she was a virtuous woman. She wasn't a woman just out here looking for a man to take care of her. That was not her goal here. She wasn't just looking for a man to give her a child to carry on the name. She was wanting to do things God's way. And we'll see how that pans out here in chapter 4. When we left chapter 3, what we knew was this. Ruth had went to Boaz in the middle of the night and made this proposal to him. And he said, you know, I'm all for it, but there's somebody between us. Let me go deal with that and see how that pans out first. And so that's where we'll pick up here in chapter 4, verse 1. Then went Boaz up to the gate and sat him down there. And behold, the kinsman of whom Boaz spake came by, unto whom he said, Ho, such a one, turn aside, sit down here. And he turned aside and sat down, and he took 10 men of the elders of the city and said, Sit ye down here. And they sat down. And he said unto the kinsman, Naomi, that is come again out of the country of Moab, selleth a parcel of land which was our brother Elimelech's. And I thought to advertise thee, saying, Buy it before the inhabitants and before the elders of my people. If thou wilt redeem it, redeem it. But if thou wilt not redeem it, then tell me that I may know. For there is none to redeem it besides thee, and I am after thee. And he said, I will redeem it. Notice, Boaz brought up the land first of all. He was all about this land. And then said Boaz, What day thou buyest the field of the hand of Naomi, thou must buy it also of Ruth, the Moabitess, the wife of the dead, to raise up the name of the dead upon his inheritance. And the kinsman said, I cannot redeem it for myself, lest I mar mine own inheritance. Redeem thou my right to thyself, for I cannot redeem it. Now, this was the manner in former time in Israel concerning redeeming and concerning changing. For to confirm all things, a man plucked off his shoe and gave it to his neighbor, and this was a testimony in Israel. Therefore the kinsman said unto Boaz, Buy it for thee. So he drew off his shoe. And Boaz said unto the elders and unto all the people, Ye are witnesses this day that I have bought all that was Elimelech's, and all that was Chilion's and Mahlon's of the hand of Naomi. Moreover, Ruth, the Moabitess, the wife of Mahlon, have I purchased to be my wife, to raise up the name of the dead upon his inheritance, that the name of the dead be not cut off from among his brethren, and from the gate of his place. Ye are witnesses this day. And all the people that were in the gate and the elders said, We are witnesses. The Lord make the woman that is come unto thine house like Rachel and Leah, which two did build the house of Israel. And do thou worthily in Ephratah, and be famous in Bethlehem. And let thy house be like the house of Pharez, whom Tamar bare unto Judah, of the seed which the Lord shall give thee of this young woman. So Boaz took Ruth, and she was his wife. And when he went in unto her, the Lord gave her conception, and she bare a son. And the women said unto Naomi, Blessed be the Lord, which hath not left thee this day without a kinsman, that his name may be famous in Israel. And he shall be unto thee a restorer of thy life, and a nourisher of thine old age, for thy daughter-in-law, which loveth thee, which is better to thee than 7 sons, hath borne him. And Naomi took the child, and laid it in her bosom, and became a nurse unto it. And the women, her neighbors, gave it a name, saying, There is a son born unto Naomi, and they called his name Obed. He is the father of Jesse, the father of David. Now these are the generations of Pharez. Pharez begat Hezron, and Hezron begat Ram, and Ram begat Amminadab, and Amminadab begat Nahshon, and Nahshon begat Salmon, and Salmon begat Boaz, and Boaz begat Obed, and Obed begat Jesse, and Jesse begat David. So, Ruth chapter 4. Boaz did as he told Ruth he would do in the middle of the night. He went to the gate of the city where all the business took place, all the civic activities were conducted, and it wasn't long that this other nameless kin person come walking by. And he walked by, and the stage is set now for the climax of this entire book of Ruth. He invites the man to sit down, and he gets 10 of the town elders. He gets witnesses to come, and they come in and they sit down and join him. Now, these men, their job was to serve as these legal witnesses to what was about to take place. They were going to be what binded the proceedings that were about to transpire here. Now, Boaz informed this guy in verse 3 through 5, he informed him that the widow, Naomi, who had recently returned to Moab, she needed some money. And because she needed money, she was going to be selling a portion of the field that belonged to their relative Elimelech. She needs to sell this because she needs money. And because he's the closest relation, this man had first rights to it. That's the way things worked back then. And Boaz said, if you want to redeem it, then redeem it. If that's what you want to do, then I need you to do it. He was kind of pressuring the guy, right? Because Boaz had another plan here. And so he talks about this land first. He don't talk about this virtuous woman. He talks about this land. He don't give it. He don't say, go think about this for a few days and let me know. He said, if you want to redeem it, then you need to redeem it. He said, if you don't, then I'm going to redeem it because I'm next in line. So the man jumped at the chance. Oh, no, I'll take it. I'll do it. I'll take the land. I'm all about it. I want some new land. But then Boaz dropped the other bomb on him. Boaz said, you can take the land, but you also have to take Ruth. You also have to take Ruth. Now, he even made it clear, and the guy knew, he's like, if you take Ruth, if you take the land, you're going to take Ruth. Why? Because we need to keep the name of her dead husband alive to his property. That was the law. That was the rule. That's how things went. So that meant with this economic acquisition comes a relational acquisition too. Now, it's easy for us to make a decision on an economic acquisition, but not so easy on a relational acquisition, right? He was probably hoping, I hope this man hadn't seen Ruth. I hope he don't know what kind of person she is, because I don't want him to take her. Boaz didn't want this guy. That's why he went about it this way. The man's eagerness to take this property sure did fade real quick, didn't it? He's like, oh, no. Okay. No, you can do it. I don't want it. He realized not only would he get this property, but he'd also be getting a bride. Gaining land was one thing, but gaining a wife was another. Right? It was a different story here. By seeking to preserve his relative's name, he said, I'll be jeopardizing my own inheritance. He said in the scripture there, said he'd be marring his own name. Where was that at? And 6, he said, I can't redeem it for myself because I'll mar my own inheritance. He said, you go ahead. He said, you go ahead. You just do what you need to do. So he wasn't interested in that. So at that time, you couldn't sign some legal documents. You couldn't go down to the courthouse and get something notarized. So the way we did this back in the day was you just take my shoe. Sounds kind of silly, but can you imagine when Boaz came walking up with old boy's shoe in his hand? She knew it was a done deal then, right? That was that binding agreement. Just come walking up with his shoe. I mean, I don't know. That's the way it worked. That's what the Bible says. It must be true. So in front of these 10 witnesses, This man, he got that shoe off in a hurry. He's like, no, I'm not doing this. He said, you have the legal right to redeem the property. Not only do you get to redeem the property, but you get to redeem Ruth. So here's the thing I want you to see. The difference in this man that we don't know his name and Boaz is this. This man was concerned about ruining his own inheritance. That's what he said. Verse 6, I don't want to mar my inheritance by taking on some other woman. He didn't even ask no questions about the woman. He didn't ask no, and we'll see later what he lost by not doing that, but it's okay because it's all God's plan here. He was worried about ruining me. Can I say this? There's too many of us sitting in this room who worries about ruining me. There's too many of us in this church who worry too much about ruining me. Oh, I can't do that. That'll take too much of my time. I can't do that because then I can't come off the wallet for that. I can't come and commit to Bible school. I can't commit to doing this or whatever because it'll hurt me. And that's where this guy was. He's worried about himself. And so that's where his motives were. Boaz's motives were more selfless. Boaz acquired Ruth and the property out of concern for others, out of concern for Elimelech and Mahlon and Chilion, his two sons that died with him. That was where his concern was. Boaz didn't have his eyes on that property. That wasn't, oh, I'll get this property if I marry her. That wasn't where his mind was. He says all along here, we're redeeming our kinsmen. We're redeeming those who were with us. His goal was to keep Mahlon's name going. That was his goal. He didn't want that to disappear. He didn't want that to go away. So it brings to mind this kind of New Testament principle that Matthew chapter 16 verse 25 says, whoever wants to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life because of me will find it. Right? That's what Jesus said. That's what Jesus said. Boaz was willing to step down, to get rid of his priorities, to take care of what was going on with Ruth and Naomi. It's oftentimes in our life that blessings will seem to follow when we lay down our priorities, when we lay down our goals for the sake of somebody else, for the sake of God's kingdom. Think back on your life where you've sacrificed, where you've had plans and you sacrificed, and where you've wanted to do things and you had a plan for tonight to go out to dinner with friends, but all of a sudden the roof starts leaking at the church and you say you cancel those back and help. Just something simple like that. Not even this big of a deal here. But when we sacrifice those things in our life, that's when God's blessings start flowing. I don't talk about money much, but we can. You can't outgive God. You can't outgive Him. If you follow the commandments of God, and if you follow the law of God, and if you follow the directives laid out by Jesus when it concerns giving, you'll never go without. See, we get the wrong impression that if I give $100, God's going to give me back $700. And when we don't see the $700, we're like, oh man, God didn't give me back what He said He would. We got it all wrong. When I give what I'm supposed to give according to my own convictions, I don't worry about my bills being paid because they seem to get paid, even when the numbers don't add up. It's not about getting more. You're making an investment, but not for a monetary return. It's for an eternal return. And I think we get that crossed up sometimes. Boaz here knew that he was making an investment, an eternal investment into Ruth and into Naomi. But I don't think he quite understands yet what that investment's going to be. We'll see in just a few minutes. So these elders, they served as witnesses and they pronounced blessings on Boaz and his wife to be. Now here's what they did. They prayed. Now I wonder if this man's still sitting there or if he's walking off with just that one shoe on his foot, hobbling along or whatever. I kind of wonder if he's still there. Because if he's still there, he's going to hear this prayer of these elders. And I wonder if that changed. It don't matter, but I kind of wonder if that changed, like, man, I made a mistake. I should have. But here's what happened. So they prayed that God would bless Ruth as he had blessed Rachel and Leah. Now, if you're a Bible studier, you know that Rachel and Leah are responsible for Israel being birthed, for Israel being built up into what it is. They gave birth to many of the fathers of Israel, if you go back and study that. They also prayed that Boaz's name and his house would become famous in Israel. This is where this guy, this selfish guy, is probably like, oh man, they're praying for him to become famous in Israel based on the offspring that God would give him from Ruth. They didn't have a clue, though. These 10 elders, the guy who backed out, Boaz or Ruth, they didn't have a clue what they were praying for and what was fixing to happen here and just how great this offspring would be. So Boaz and Ruth, they married. God gave them a son that they named Obed. Verse 13 we'll see. Now the women of the town rejoiced. They were rejoicing with Naomi, because remember when Naomi walked back into Bethlehem over in chapter 1, she walked in with her head held down low. She walked in beat up. She walked in defeated. She said, God's left me. That's basically where she was. God don't care. He's just left me out here. He's just left me to do for myself. But now these women of the town who she was telling all that to just a few chapters ago are now rejoicing with her because how God had provided for her and had provided for Ruth. Matter of fact, they told Naomi that Ruth was better to her than 7 sons. Verse 15. Back then, a son was what you wanted, right? It took a son to carry on the family name. And if a man, you can find instances of this in the Bible where a man, if his wife could only bear him daughters, then they'd go bring another wife in, right? Maybe this one can bear him a son. That's how important to these guys carrying on that name was, and it was important to them. But the women of the town here said that Ruth is better. Ruth, not even her daughter. It's her daughter-in-law. And said, Ruth is better to you than 7 sons. Y'all all know that 7 in the Bible means perfection. It means completion. 7 sons to one man, that's a blessing. I mean, that's like the ultimate blessing for a man in Bible days to walk around and say, I've got 7 sons. Man, what a blessing that was for that man. But they're saying here that Ruth by herself is better than all 7 sons. That's a high praise for Ruth. That's a high praise for this woman. And because of her faithfulness, God blessed her with a child. You know who else he blessed with a child in Luke chapter 1? Mary. And as we'll see here in the final verses here, it talks in 16 through 22, we see this genealogy beginning with Judah's son, Perez, and then it ends with David in 18 through 22. And it tells us that Ruth and Boaz's son, Obed, that he would be David's grandfather. Now, I think the Israelites who wrote Ruth, who wrote this book, I think they kind of knew what was coming. I think they had some divine inspiration from God to make it important enough to put it in there that David was part of this heritage. What they didn't know, though, was there was another descendant going to come from David's bloodline. That there was another descendant, that kingly line of David would ultimately lead to the Messiah being born, to Jesus Christ being born. And guess where Jesus was born? Somebody tell me. Bethlehem, right? Which is exactly where this story takes place. It's exactly where Obed was born, in Bethlehem. We see this line here just forming and forming and forming and just becoming something great. So Boaz and Ruth were really unaware of what would happen. They knew God was working in their life. They knew something great was happening, but they never knew how big this was going to be. They never quite understanding it. So here's what I want to leave you with today. If you submit yourself to God, and if you'll say, God, I know I'm a Moabite. I don't belong in Bethlehem, but my husband died, and I really believe that you are the God of gods. I think you are the God I want to serve, and I'm going to follow my mother-in-law down here to Bethlehem where I have no business being, and I'm just going to follow you. This was a big step for Ruth, guys. This was a huge step for her to leave her hometown and go somewhere where she's not welcome, not included, not going to be, except to Naomi. And she said, God, I'm just going to submit myself to you. That's what I want to leave you with this morning. If you'll just submit yourself to God's will, it may not be comfortable. It may not be fun. It may look like a dead-end road. It may look like things are going to just get all crazy for you. But if you'll submit yourself to God's agenda and you open yourself up to His sovereign purpose, not understanding it, and if you'll do that not only for your benefit, but for what might come down the road, just watch and see what God's going to do for you. I bet everybody in here has a story of how they submitted themselves to God in one area of their life and it led to something else. Mine is 10 years ago, Paul Hutchins coming up to me and Amber and saying, hey, y'all mind just helping out every now and then on a Wednesday night with the game time in Awana? I said, I ain't got to talk to nobody, do I? And I didn't know Paul. I just came to a Sunday school class a few times. Me and Amber recently married. I was like, I ain't got to speak in front of nobody, do I? He's like, oh, no. Just if the kickball goes out of bounds, go get it and throw it back in. I mean, that's all. We just need some help. We just need some bodies. I had no idea that was going to lead me to being the middle school pastor at this church. I had no idea that was going to lead me to getting to baptize some of these young people, to be able to witness to them. I had no idea it was going to lead me to be able to work with some of the best leaders in this church. I didn't know that's where God was taking me. And I still don't know where it's going to end up. But I know this. I'm 40 years old, and I wish I'd have submitted a long time ago. And I'm not fully submitted now. I'm not standing up here saying I'm Ruth and Boaz here. Don't get me wrong. I still struggle, and I still probably make the wrong decision more times than I do the right decision when it comes to submitting to God, and I think we probably all do. But I think if we would just take the time to pray about it. This guy here that we don't know his name, he immediately, when he heard the word wife, he's like, nope, I'm out. I'm out. He didn't say, let me go pray about it. He didn't say, give me a little time. Nope, I'm out. I wonder how many times we just, nope, I ain't doing it. Without even praying about it. Without even seeking God's face about it. We just say, nope, I ain't doing it. Not interested. Y'all take that thought with you this week. As you go through your week, just keep studying on this and see what there is for God to show you about how you could submit more for future generations, it may be something that's going to come about next week, or it may be 100 years from now, what your decisions could lead to. Let's pray. Father, thank you for this day, for your word. And thank you for these folks here in this class who come faithfully, God, to hear about you and to hear about things that you're doing. God, I just pray you'll work in their lives. God, answer their prayers and their needs. God, help us to submit to you in every situation. God, it may look like a dead-end road. It may look like all hope is gone. It may look like we're doing things in vain, God, but you have a bigger plan. Help us to see that, trust that, and believe it, God. In Jesus' name, amen. Y'all have a wonderful day.